You're back. We all back the D-backs. Welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as Captain Mayor around these parts. And they had to absolutely drag me off of that cruise at 9:15 a.m. in order to get me off that boat. It's understandable. I was still very drunk. I am joined, of course, by my first mate, the one and only Thunderstick, Jesse Friedman. And boy, it feels great to be back. I still feel like I'm on a boat a little bit. I still got the wobbles, but I had a very good time. I just want to tell anybody out there who is ever considering taking a cruise to do it. It was one of the most relaxing things I've ever done. They have these themed cruises now. This was the Kevin Smith movies. I know you're not super familiar, but like the director has a bunch of movies, goes by Jay and Silent Bob. It was an absolute blast to be a part of it because there was always something going on. There was a concert at like midnight. If I was awake at midnight, I could just go watch some band performing on the ship somewhere. Wow. But most importantly, there was always food. There was always food. That's food big. That's big. But I did have a blast. And while I was on the ship, I did have a chance to pay homage to our great closer, Paul Sewald, at a silent disco, Jesse. It's a disco where you put headphones on and you have two DJs. You get to listen to them on two different channels, and this came on, and so I had to do this. Let's I can't get down, so get out your seat and jump around, jump around, jump around, jump around. They're 45 years jump up and get down, jump, 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 jump. Oh my God, that was had a fun time. You knew I went off once that song came on in those headsets. Yes. And yes, we are joined by the one and only Emma, by the way. Emma on the ones and twos. I know everybody is thrilled to see her. I know I was to see her, but you can't see her. We can see her. That's our special treat. I will say, though, I going back to Paul Sewald, I still can't believe we are starting the season with an actual real closer, Jesse. It just feels so good. Feels so good to have that part of your life complete.
Yeah. I mean, it is a big part of life when you're a baseball fan and your team just consistently doesn't have a closer or has a closer that you're not really very convinced is particularly good. It's an experience, and it kind of colors the whole season a certain way.
It does.
And Diamondbacks fans don't have to deal with that this year.
The Cleveland Guardians could have used a closer today, though. Diamondbacks got to them late. And let's talk about this really fast. Because if today's game doesn't get you fired up for the goddamn baseball season, then check your pulse. You might be dead. I don't care if it's a spring training game. I don't care that scores don't matter and results don't matter. The Diamondbacks scored 4 runs in the top of the 9th for the comeback win. And that was exciting. That was fun to watch. Again, like if your team loses in spring training, you typically say, oh, well. And again, I know it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but if you love baseball, this was a fun one.
It absolutely was. Yeah. Juan Zapata, man. Rough day for Juan Zapata of the Cleveland Guardians.
Oh, he's going to remember this one. That's for sure.
4 runs on 6 hits in that 9th inning. And Diamondbacks come away with a win. It's always kind of funny, like talking with Torey Lovullo after these games, because he's so conditioned to give sort of generally positive comments when the team wins and negative comments when the team loses, when in reality, like the difference between winning and losing in these games is often like how well like your single A, double A guys played toward the end of the game.
Right.
And you're really not like in the grand scheme of things that concerned about those guys. But they came through. They came through in this one for sure.
They sure did.
Kyle Backus came through in a big way for the Diamondbacks, and the bullpen entered a base-loaded no-out situation, struck out all 3 batters he faced.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And I know Kyle Backus has been a guy that we have had in the system for a little while. I've seen him, had a chance to see him pitch a couple of times, but like, it's exciting when you can see these minor league guys come up, have an opportunity once again in front of Torey, in front of his staff, to impress and to, go out there and do something like that. It really does. It does change the perspective, because the front office, Torey, they only get to see you for such a limited amount of time during spring, that if those few instances, those opportunities you have, you take advantage like that, it's incredible. Like you said, though, Torey had his comments on the Diamondbacks win. This is what Torey had to say.
Anytime you win a game like that, I don't care if it's spring training, a little league game that you're watching your kids playing, anytime you have that kind of a comeback, it's fun. Gets the juices flowing, and these kids were super excited. So it was this type of approach. It was what we preach. All the youngsters stuck to it, and it worked out really well. I thought Tommy threw the ball exceptionally well. He was commanding all of his pitches. He was mixing all of his pitches and handed it off to Nelly, who I thought did a really nice job as well. Brandon was just running away from his arm a little bit and leaving things and dragging things arm side, and I think he would try to correct, and he'd yank some balls. That's to be expected. Those are things that happen inside of a game where you get on the mound, you start to find that middle point, exactly where that release point is, and it'll be fine. So I have zero concern about his outing today.
It's weird because you do get excited about wins like this. You do get excited about things like this happening, but then you don't really care about the negative results, or you don't really need to panic or overreact to it.
Yeah.
Right? You have situations where guys that you want to see do well don't in spring. I know Erod had a pretty rough start for his first start of spring training, and now Brandon Pfaadt today had a fairly rough start in his spring training debut. But again, not anything to be concerned about, right?
Yeah, probably not. But I do have to ask you, are you aware of what happened to Erod's first pitch in a Diamondbacks uniform?
I am aware of that. I had an internet connection during that, so yes, I am aware.
Yes, Marcus Semien did hit it over the fence.
I hate it. Yeah. I blame you and all these goddamn, Madison Bumgarner comparisons is what I really blame. But
that's fair. I probably deserve that. Going back to Brandon Pfaadt, he did not look good today. It was bad. Brandon Pfaadt did not look good today, but it's amazing what just like not having really good feel for your pitches can do, and how big of a difference that can make. His sweeper today was kind of just like a floating, like it was almost hard to identify exactly what pitch it was in certain situations. I know he threw a couple changeups as well. So yeah, the feel for the pitches wasn't there. The command wasn't there. There were, some center cut fastballs and whatnot. But yeah, as you said, you're not concerned about that at this point. The Diamondbacks are taking it slow with Brandon Pfaadt, which I think is interesting. Just one inning from him today. And it didn't look good, but at this stage, Torey Lovullo clearly not concerned. And I personally am not concerned, even though it didn't look good. It was not a pretty outing from him at all.
I mean, you don't want to see them do poorly at any point, right? So that's nothing new. But at the same time, right, like it's spring training, and typically when the guys that are going out there that know that they kind of have a spot are going out there, they are working on stuff during this time of the year. And I mean, Brandon Pfaadt's spot in the rotation by no means is secure, right? Like
I think it's pretty secure.
Well,
I think it's pretty secure.
And I'm not saying he could lose it, but at the same time, right? Like there is the idea that maybe he went out today working on something particular.
Sure.
He did make comments afterwards. This is what Brandon Pfaadt had to say about the outing.
I think it was a good first one. Obviously the results weren't what we wanted, but I think just to get out there, get your feet wet, nothing to complain about.
It's one inning, right?
Yeah.
Are you good with that?
Just one inning. I think getting ahead would be the biggest factor, and certainly that's what we want to work on moving forward.
Was that the plan just for one inning, or was it a pitch thing?
It was just one inning, correct. One inning, I think 25 pitches.
How are you feeling?
Feel great. Arm feels great, and body feels great. So I'm ready to start ramping up here soon.
Are you approaching this?
You were saying he worked out after after his pitch?
Yeah, so he had literally just worked out apparently, and then we all come up and start annoying him with all of our post game questions. And at one point we like stopped the interview so that Brandon Pfaadt could catch his breath. I don't know what exactly he was doing. That was kind of fun.
It's interesting to think of like it makes sense if you're training, if you're trying to ramp yourself up and get to the point where you can throw 5-6 innings, right? That you would try to do things after you came out of the game. It's
intuitively the timing. I don't get it.
Like you come out of even just pitching one inning and now what, you're going to go do wind sprints or something? Like that's kind of wild. It's kind of wild. Like I would think that you'd take care of that before the outing, but I don't really know how baseball works sometimes. But Brandon, I mean, again, I know he's very important. I don't feel like his spot in the rotation is in jeopardy. But again, it's safe to say at times that nobody's job is truly secure if there are other people on the team in the organization outperforming them, right? So it's like there still has to be that attitude of I think of every single guy out there that they're still deep down inside still playing for a spot and I think Torey brought this up last week when we were out there that there's always a guy from the minor leagues trying to play their way up and take your spot. You know what I mean? That's kind of the nature of the game.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do think, I mean, Torey has kind of already talked about where he stands on the starting rotation, and he's said that we feel pretty good about 1 through 4. I think it's abundantly clear that Brandon Pfaadt, pretty much no matter what he does this spring, is going to have a starting rotation spot on opening day. But at the same time, this was a topic of conversation today, kind of how he's approaching this spring training, which is much different from last year around this time when Brandon Pfaadt was gunning for a job, but it kind of felt like no matter how well he pitched, he wasn't going to get it. They were going to send him down to Reno anyway. But yeah, his approach coming into spring training this time around is different. I think the job is pretty secure. But at the same time, Torey has said that he talked to him about, not becoming complacent or whatnot. And not that there's really any concern that Brandon Pfaadt would do that, but just making sure you kind of keep the foot on the gas pedal heading into the season and, making sure that he is building on what he did last year.
He pitched a lot of innings last year. And, he did. Obviously he was a big weapon for this team in the postseason. So it's understandable that they do want to slow play him in a similar degree that they're playing, Gallen and Merrill Kelly.
It's pretty similar. Yeah, it's pretty similar. I mean, Pfaadt was at just 1 inning today. Torey said after the game that, some guys, I guess Zach and Merrill, instead of doing their 1 inning in a game, they're just doing that on the backfields in kind of a more controlled environment. Brandon, I guess, opted to actually do it in a game. But yeah, he's at a pretty similar point right now. I think you're going to see Zach and Merrill get into games sometime about a week or so from right now. Pfaadt's kind of in the same range, and I think all those guys are going to be going 2 innings once they get to that point. But yeah, Brandon Pfaadt threw 156 2/3 innings last year in the regular season between AAA and the majors. You tack on another 22 innings in the playoffs, that puts him at 178 2/3, I believe, if my math is correct. He was at 167 last year in the regular season, plus I think a few in the playoffs. So from an innings perspective, he basically finished 2024 or 2023 in the same place as he finished 2022. I'm guessing for the D-backs, the difference is that he was also pitching in November. Like he was pitching really, really late this time around. His offseason was considerably shorter. And so they're just approaching this with an abundance of caution.
Well, it's like you said, last spring he was playing and trying to make this same impression we've talked about other guys trying to make on Torey and make on the front office, right? And now he's just in a different spot. And like again, there's still a lot to prove for Brandon Pfaadt. Like by no means is his performance in the postseason something that makes me feel 100% like we're just going to get that out of him during the regular season and from this point on. But he has shown how good he can be, and I think that's the coolest thing about his season last year is he really did reach what felt like his full potential, and that might not even be his full potential. He might be able to get to another level that we haven't even seen out of him yet. But there was some other guys had a good day out there today. Lourdes absolutely destroyed a hanging slider over the left field fence for a dinger. That was nice to see. And Jordan Lawler just continues to be good for this team. I mean, he really is playing well.
Yeah, he made a really nice snag, kind of a short hop on an absolute laser, hit by one Davison De Los Santos, the right fielder today.
What?
For the Cleveland Guardians.
They are going to figure out some fucking way to get him in there, aren't they? They're like, we don't care. We're not giving this guy back to the Diamondbacks. You will be on the major league roster. We don't care where it was. You'll pitch if we ask you to pitch at this point.
I did a double take when I saw this. I was like, all right, we're trying him in right field. Let's just try him in center. Try him at shortstop.
Why not?
See if he can catch, right? It was. I'm not so sure if I think that that's going to work out so well for the Guardians having De Los Santos in right field. He didn't seem to be moving particularly well out there, but he did hit a laser at one point in the game, and Jordan Lawler played that short hop extremely, extremely well. Nice. It kind of feels like Lawler is going to be one of those shortstops who, at least at the beginning, maybe he makes a mistake here and there. Maybe there's an error here and there or whatnot as he's early in his career. But he's also going to make some plays like that one that not a lot of other shortstops are making.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Geraldo Perdomo, for example, makes the play that Jordan Lawler did at that point in this game. So he continues to show that shortstop is a very viable long-term home.
That's a scathing comment towards Jerry P, and you are lucky that Damon is not our producer today.
If Damon were here, I wouldn't have said it.
He would have jumped over the table already on you. Tucker Barnhart went 2 for 2 today. That's a good look for potentially our backup catcher there.
Yeah, and I think he had a double, and I think he did sort of take advantage of Davison De Los Santos being the right fielder on that particular play. But hit the ball hard a couple of times. I still view him as being the front runner for that backup catcher role. Of course, Jose Herrera is still here and getting opportunity as well. But it just kind of feels like, the fact that the Diamondbacks didn't go out and really add any other pieces in that regard. Now there were some minor league guys who are maybe getting a look there as well. But I still kind of think that Tucker Barnhart is going to wind up with that spot when all is said and done.
It makes sense because of, kind of that veteran presence he brings behind the plate. I think that's the one thing he offers that's different from everybody else, including Gabby, right? And so
absolutely,
that experience can be invaluable not only when he's back there, but talking to Gabby, talking to the other guys.
Yeah,
he could end up becoming somebody's personal catcher. That stuff kind of can happen as well. But I mean, a lot of good stuff. Caleb Roberts, like you said earlier, had that broken bat triple to tie the game in the 9th. There was a lot of fun to watch. A lot of fun Diamondbacks baseball watch. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to Tommy Henry, though, because Tommy Henry was once again excellent today. But we will get to that here shortly. Did want to say there was an update on Alek Thomas. Is he?
Yeah, Alek
injured?
Thomas he's still dealing with right wrist soreness. Torey continues to say that if this were the playoffs, if this were September, he would be playing.
Gotcha.
It's not a significant issue, but it's spring training. There's no reason to push it. So as of right now, today would have been a day where he would be in the lineup. They're kind of doing this thing where they alternate the starting outfield and then the starting infield.
Gotcha.
So today was the starting outfield
they
day.
have to have so many guys in there.
Because they don't want people paying $115 to sit behind home plate at a spring training game, and then there be a bunch of minor leaguers in the starting.
It's inevitable that we're going to do a story before the end of spring training on this show about how much money Arizona and Florida are raking in off of spring training games and how much these facilities are. But he's right. I mean, come on, what are we doing here? We let people go to the Arizona Fall League games for like $5 and sit in the front row. Yet spring training games need to be $115 to sit back there.
That is a great point.
To watch Caleb Roberts win the game with a broken bat triple. Come on, what are we doing here? But, it is fun though, because of course Diamondbacks players are getting more recognized. Speaking of Alek Thomas, he is so recognizable. Like Alek Thomas, on multiple occasions, I've seen him around town, and I can spot him from a mile away, and he will be with 4 of his teammates that it takes me like 5 minutes of speaking to him directly to recognize that he's with his teammates. But
you just wait, let me get this straight. You just like keep bumping into Alek Thomas.
Yes, Alek Thomas is at events that I go to all the time.
Okay.
He is constantly at events, and he's usually there with like guys like Ryan Nelson or
Sure.
Tommy, indescribable baseball players that usually the only reason why I notice them is because they're tall. No knock to those guys. Alec Thomas is very recognizable. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of the guys are getting that. Obviously, Corbin Carroll, very recognizable. I was going to save this picture to later. Emma, can you throw the picture up? We'll talk about some gorgeousness. Look at this. Look at these legends. Look at these 3 Arizona sports baby legends. Soon to be. Well, maybe 2 out of 3.
Yeah. That's what I was going to. You mean 2 Arizona sports legends.
I'll let you guys decide on that point, but I love this picture so goddamn much because if this doesn't get you pumped about Arizona sports right now, again, check your pulse.
It gets me pumped about, I think it could get me pumped about 2 Arizona sports teams.
I'm going to tell Johnny what you said. But
Kyler Murray is a perfectly mediocre NFL quarterback.
Oh my God,
that's what I'm trying to tell you.
I will not. I'm not going to entertain this discourse.
This is also coming from someone who got second to last in our fantasy football league. You don't know jack titties about
You almost
jack
went
titties.
to Waffle House. In fact, your team name was in fact the Waffle House wagon. So let's not forget that. But Alec Thomas isn't the only one getting recognized. We also have Brandon Pfaadt talking about getting recognized a bit more around town after the World Series run that this team had. Let's take a look at that.
What have the last couple months been like?
It was cool to go home and experience that and be recognized, but it's cool to go out in public and people know who you are. So I'm definitely grateful for that, and definitely want to give back in those situations.
Do you feel added pressure this season coming into the situation you're coming into?
No, but I think we have a new standard, and we're trying to meet that standard, and as a group and as a whole team and as a whole organization, and that's what we're looking forward to.
He's got to be a king in Louisville, not just for what he did, but for his defense publicly of that clip that we had on our Twitter account of him defending Louisville.
I still don't think you're very good at that.
No, but the standard, he said the standard, that's got to be the hot, that's like the secret word is standard around this place. Right?
It's not quite as catchy as the whole connected and dangerous thing from the playoffs. Like,
can we get a curse word in there? Maybe if we added a curse word, it's the fucking standard. Now it's hot. Now that's electric.
I like that one way more.
See, all you got to do is add a curse word to it. It makes everything better. It's true. It is very true.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, I mean, again, I'm sure he is an absolute king around his hometown. We know how much support he already received. Like, I don't recall bumping into anybody else's like teammates from high school and stuff at games, and the way that we did with his family and with all of his support that he had out there during the World Series. So it feels like that's something cool. And I mean, honestly, Brandon Pfaadt, he got a recognizable face. He looks like he's always cold. His cheeks look like he's always cold. See him.
He also the way that this was asked by Nick King. He had started this question asking about what it was like to be introduced at the Phoenix Open as being like a Arizona sports hero alongside Larry Fitzgerald and other local celebrities who were there. So yeah, I think it's cool for Brandon Pfaadt. I mean, Brandon Pfaadt is a local sports celebrity in a way that not many guys with his experience level could be. Fact of the matter is that he was fantastic in the postseason. Like that's Brandon Pfaadt. When people think Brandon Pfaadt, they probably don't really remember his regular season performance that much anymore. When they think of Brandon Pfaadt, when they see Brandon Pfaadt, they think of a guy who went out there and, threw 5 2/3 scoreless innings in Game 3 of the NLCS when the Diamondbacks were down 2-0, right? And all of his other outings, he just continued to be a force for this team throughout that whole period of time. So he's made a name for himself around here.
What do they know about the late night phone call that he got from Brent Strom during the All-Star break that changed his entire career? What do they know about it? No, they know nothing. They just know that he was amazing in the playoffs, and of course he was. But still remains to be seen how amazing Brandon Pfaadt can be for this team this season, and still feels like all signs point to him being much better than we saw at the beginning of last year when he made his debut, because we know that was kind of rough. and also just maybe even better than what we saw in the postseason. Maybe Torey will let him go longer than 5 innings.
Isn't it like I just have to take in for a moment. I mean, like after Brandon Pfaadt just got completely destroyed in some of his first few outings in the majors, right? I mean, he started it against the Rangers. That's where he made his big league debut. He gave up several homers. It was an ugly outing. He stayed up for a while after that. But eventually got sent down after about 5 starts. He comes back up. He pitches 1 game against the Tampa Bay Rays and gets absolutely destroyed. And then he goes back down. And just thinking back to, that was well into June, I think almost July at that point. And that's the guy who came through for the Diamondbacks in the playoffs in a way that Zach Gallen wasn't able to do.
Right. I remain cautiously optimistic that we can still see that side of Brandon. But like you said, in a way, we really don't know because we haven't seen we've seen him be as bad as he's been and as good as he's been, right? Like it's the tale of two people or two sides of the same person, I guess you could say. But the one thing about it is that he described that phone call with Strom and, Strom having this kind of inspired moment of realizing what was wrong with Brandon Pfaadt in those starts and what he could do to help him. And it seemed like from that point on, things really went his way. So hopefully that continues in 2024. And again, it's spring training, nothing to panic about yet. But there is one thing to panic about. And that is that today is the absolute last day for the PHNX locker merch sale. We got our clearance sale going on. Every single piece of clothing is 30% off. Everything. All of it. Go now. Even the clearance stuff, even stuff that's already on sale is 30% off. So do not miss this. Stock up now. Get ready for the baseball season. Go get all of our shirts. We're still a wagon. You know what I mean? We're still fucking dangerous. We're still connected. We're still dangerous. And that's the way that it works. So go out, get those shirts. Fill up your drawers, your closets right now and get that 30% off. Today is the last day to do so. And please get yourself some Diamondback stuff. We love to see you guys in those shirts. Nothing thrills me more than when we go out to spring training and we get to see people wearing our shirts. Jesse, they're like, I got to meet some of my favorite actors from this stupid movie series. Still didn't thrill me as much as seeing someone wearing a wagon shirt out there when we were at spring camp. It was great. Love seeing you guys in that stuff. Of course, we are missing Damon right now, but he is doing something with football, whatever. I don't know. Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I leave and then
kind of football
Damon
nonsense.
seems to think he can leave anytime I leave or anytime you leave. Like you leave, he leaves. I leave, he leaves. That's not the way this works.
I think they're looking for a new quarterback because Kyler Murray wasn't really cutting it. So
you're gonna make the people in the comments mad. You're gonna make Damon mad. But of course, these two will duke it out at Illegal Pete's because that's where they both like to hang out quite a bit. Illegal Pete's is their go-to spot for buddy time, and of course, it can be your go-to spot as well. Patio season means patio beers. It also means patio margaritas, which Illegal Pete's does make the strongest in Arizona. They also have all sorts of mouth-watering food that will fill all of your heart's desire. Do not miss out on the reverse nachos because it's a life-changing experience, and I still thank Sean for giving that to me. You can kick the Monday blues with $3 margaritas all day long or ease your way back into work with $2 tacos every Tuesday. Do you work in healthcare or education? Take your team to lunch at Illegal Pete's every Tuesday and enjoy buy one, get one free entrees for all of you hardworking, wonderful people out there in those industries. And don't forget to unwind after a long day at their happy hour, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. every single day. Illegal Pete's, your go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beer. Game Time, by the way, great place to get your spring training tickets, especially if you need to get those tickets last minute. Game Time, very aesthetically pleasing app. You also can get $20 off using our code PHNX on your first purchase, but it is the place for last minute tickets for everything that you want to go to. Concerts, shows, doesn't matter what it is, but most importantly, baseball games. Let's go watch some baseball games. And of course, let's do it with the fastest growing ticketing app in the country. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Brandon Pfaadt struggled a bit today. But you know who didn't struggle was Tommy Henry. He, meanwhile, was very, very good once again in his second outing of spring. He went 3 innings, gave up no hits, no runs, walked 1, struck out 1. And I mean, I don't know, Jesse. I know I kind of already viewed Henry as a front runner for that spot, but it really does feel like if he puts a couple of more outings together like this, that it might be a lock for him. And again, it's early. Don't want to jump too ahead of Ryan Nelson or some of the other guys fighting for that rotation spot. But Tommy Henry, again, there were a lot of outliers that we've discussed already that made him feel like he was kind of the favorite to win this. You come into camp, you have him go out there, and in his first 2 starts, guy still hasn't given up a run.
Right. Yeah, I feel like if Tommy Henry continues to pitch well, the spot is his pretty much. Like, even if Ryan Nelson and Slade Ciccone just go out there and totally shove, if Tommy Henry continues to pitch like this, I just don't really see a window for those guys to come in and take it. He just, based on the season he had last year, the fact that he had a 4.15 ERA, and already has kind of proven himself at the major league level in a way that neither Nelson nor Ciccone nor Blake Walston or Bryce Jarvis, whoever else you want to put in that conversation. I think the spot is sort of his to lose, and he certainly hasn't lost it up to this point.
Right. Oh yeah.
You look at his total stats so far through his 2 spring training outings: 5 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. And today it was really good. I know he only had 1 strikeout in this game. I think there was a called 3rd strike that didn't go his way. Probably could have had another strikeout or maybe multiple pretty easily.
But 29 pitches.
Yeah, 29 pitches to get through 3 innings is an extreme level of efficiency. His changeup looked really good. His curveball and slider continued to look solid. He's incorporating a sinker as well.
He was too efficient. In fact, he had to go into the bullpen and do some extra work.
He did,
because after 3 innings of work, he just hadn't thrown enough pitches that they wanted to see out of him. Right, like that. There's something to be said about a lot of those peripherals that we've discussed when it comes to Tommy Henry. For me, the one that I can't get my mind off of is his average exit velo being so low when compared to even the best pitchers on this team. Do you have any kind of explanation or reason why he like that? Why the balls are so softly hit off of him? Yeah, that's a good question. It's my understanding of like average exit velo for pitchers is that it's not like it doesn't necessarily hold year to year, I guess. Okay. So like if a guy is really good in that regard one year, it doesn't necessarily say much about how it will be the next year. Like Zach Gallen, for example, had like one of the worst average exit velos by opposing hitters in all of baseball last year. But I don't necessarily think that means that like, oh, he's terrible. Yeah, like hitters hit him easily or whatnot. Right. So we'll have to see kind of how sustainable this is for Tommy Henry. But I do think he has a tendency to pitch around the edges of the strike zone, and maybe wants to get in the strike zone a little bit more. But there is something to be said for kind of living around the edges and also having a variety of pitches. The fact that he has a more diverse arsenal than I think a lot of the other young starting pitchers that this team has, all of those things work in his favor. Well, this is what Tommy had to say on what he liked about his outing.
I was happy to see like a couple swings and misses on the slider. It's a pitch that's a constant work in progress. Keeps getting better. So to get a little bit of that feedback in game was nice, and also threw a couple more sinkers than we did in the previous start, just to kind of see how it plays. Felt good about it this week leading up to it. And yeah, got some ground balls off of it. So that was kind of a different approach as to the previous one, and we'll see how it kind of molds more moving forward.
Does the fact that he came in relief mean anything, or is that just still kind of viewed as like just him going out there and getting some work in? Probably doesn't mean much of anything. I mean, at this point, the Diamondbacks just there's only so many games, and they've got a lot of starting pitchers that they want to get opportunities. So yeah, I wouldn't read into that at all. I just think that Brandon, wanting to actually pitch in a real game, and then Tommy Henry also, this being his turn through the rotation, it just sort of happened this way. I did ask him if it changed anything for him, like coming out of the bullpen, and not really. He said, he has to run like 250 feet out from the bullpen to the mound, and
other than that, there aren't.
You know?
Yeah, that'll take the breath out of you a little bit. But yeah, I don't think it really changed much for him, and I wouldn't read into that at all.
Well, like what's funny about him being so efficient today is the fact that, like, okay, so they have a game plan. Torey Lovullo wants to see these guys throw so many pitches, but like you said, there's only so much time in a game. And when he went out there and only threw 29 pitches in 3 innings, it doesn't leave them much. Like, we can't leave you out there anymore. We have other guys we want to see, but we wanted to get you to, 30 or 45 or something like that, right?
Yeah, so, 45.
This is Tommy Henry was asked about it after the game, if having to throw extra pitches in the bullpen or about those extra pitches he had to throw in the bullpen because of how efficient he was.
Yeah, that's like, to be completely candid, I don't think any pitcher loves doing that, but you got to do it as part of the build-up. So yeah, I had to go down there and do that. But yeah, that's just part of building volume.
Building those volume for those starts, baby. Let's build that volume.
He was too efficient for his own good, Derek. Darn it, he had to go throw 16 pitches in a bullpen afterward.
I mean, but he's been incredibly good in these 2 spring outings. 5 innings pitched. He's given up 1 hit, no runs, walked 1, 4 strikeouts. Like, you couldn't ask for anything better out of the first 2 outings from a guy who is fighting for your 5th rotation spot right now than that.
Yeah, and we mentioned the 29 pitches today. He also only needed 22 his last time out for 2 innings. So he's thrown 51 pitches in 5 innings.
Well,
of work,
and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a correlation there, I feel like, through how efficient he is, how softly, that exit velo is. There's just there's things about him about, like, that it might not be flashy. He might not fill up the stat sheet, but it feels like he's that kind of pitcher that's going to go out there, kind of like Merrill Kelly, and just put in work and get those outs, and just do it in a way where it gets a lot of ground balls and things like that. But for the most part, doesn't really have to go out and strike out a ton of guys in order for him to have a great outing like this.
Yeah, there's just something about, I mean, I like that you mentioned Merrill Kelly very much fits into this bucket as well. Like, these pitchers who just have pretty deep arsenals and seem to have a pretty good understanding of how to use those pitches. I'm not saying Tommy Henry is quite at Merrill Kelly's level at this stage, but yeah, I mean,
he's a good guy to learn from, though, when you're sitting in the dugout watching him play.
I mean, there's no one pitch that Tommy Henry throws that's like, oh, that's nasty. I think even Merrill Kelly has gotten closer to that point. Yes. Like, there are days where Merrill Kelly's changeup is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know if Tommy Henry really has a pitch like that, but his changeup is good. His curveball seems to be good. His slider, as you heard him talk about there, seems to be taking a step forward. He added the sinker. He's trying to add a sinker, as I mentioned earlier as well. So there's a deep arsenal here, and pitchers
enough
who have
enough to keep batters off balance. And I think that's the thing is again, even if it's not that efficient, or it's very efficient, if it's not that power, you're not seeing those incredible things out of him, but it works. He's getting the outs, and I mean, again, last year, he didn't necessarily dazzle you with his performances. He had his share of bad outings and rough starts as well, right? But like, there is something very, very promising right now about what we saw last year, him building on it, and what we've already seen this spring.
Yeah, and I think it kind of serves him well in some ways that he doesn't have like that crazy out pitch or whatever, because I've never gotten the sense that Tommy Henry was ever like pitching for strikeouts. He's just kind of pitching,
and
he's
that's why
going
he wasn't
out there.
The exciting option when you started looking at him compared to Ryan Nelson, Dre Jameson, and the farm system. Even Blake Walston at times looked like he was going to potentially be a little bit more of a stud than Tommy Henry. Tommy Henry's stuff didn't overwhelm you. It just doesn't need to be that at this level, especially when you have somebody you can learn from in a way by watching, like Merrill, and a mentor like Brent Strom who can teach you how to use that arsenal in an effective way to get outs. And that's what it's about, is getting outs and, being able to go out there and be a starting pitcher for this team. I think he's already shown, again, it's early in spring. I'm not going to go crazy on this, but I feel like, again, what we talked about earlier was that he kind of was a front runner, I felt like, coming into this for this 5th, spot in the rotation. And so far, I think he's done everything that you could ask from him,
Yeah, and we talked with Torey a little bit about this after the game, and here's what Torey had to say about what he's seen from Tommy Henry so far.
I see him right on track for this competition. He's doing everything we're asking him to do, everything we want to see, and he's executing at a high level. So I want that to continue.
Man, Torey's got that Salt River Fields tan, doesn't he?
He does.
He's got.
Yes.
He's ready.
I
for
also
the baseball
have a
season.
Salt River Fields
I'm seeing
tan.
that. You're looking good. You're glowing. Henry, though,
as glowing as I can
glowing as you can be. I didn't get nearly enough sun because it was raining in the Bahamas. But
yeah, I was
gonna
say, I feel like my tan is like actually rivaling yours right now.
Spent a lot of time in the bar with those pina coladas. God bless the fine folks on the Norwegian Pearl for putting up with me and my constant desire to have lava flows and mudslides and pina coladas. But you guys are great. I will say this though. I think the Diamondbacks, no matter what the end result is of this competition, are going to have some assets that we haven't really considered in that bullpen that could also bolster the bullpen. And if Tommy Henry goes out there, I mean, if he does not win the starting job and he can go out there and be this for this team out of the bullpen, that's something incredible as well. So, I mean, again, that's the one exciting thing about this competition does yield the fact that there could be some more weapons. These guys that lose the starting spot aren't going to just necessarily be sent down, to the minors and not utilized. So
that's fair. Yeah, I think that Tommy just makes so much sense as a starter, just given the efficiency that we're talking about, his ability to eat some innings. I think in a way that you might not be quite as confident about with Ryan Nelson or Slade Ciccone at this point. But yeah, I mean, speaking of guys who maybe could have impact in other ways, we talked about this the other day a little bit. Ryan Nelson, he was pretty heavy on the fastball and the slider the other day, and they look good. I know you weren't around when he made that start, but
his fastball has always been very good.
His fastball has been good, but the slider
slider
was different this time. He got 5 whiffs on the slider in 2 innings of work. I think that, just those 2 pitches in a bullpen role, I'm intrigued what that could look like. And I think the same goes for Slade Ciccone. He's got a pretty good slider in his own right, a fastball in the mid 90s. Maybe that ticks up closer to the upper 90s in a bullpen role. Both of those guys, I think, would be interesting in the bullpen. It's just a matter of, do the Diamondbacks want to keep them stretched out for a while just in case injuries arise? You probably don't want to rush into converting them to relievers too early. So it might be a while before we would see any of those guys used in that role.
Do you know if Ryan Nelson is throwing the slider with a stiff wrist, like a football?
I don't. I'm not. I haven't.
I'm just checking in for Roger Beshens just to see if that slider you're discussing might indeed be the football slider that Roger Beshens is always bringing up. But I will say that I would put my money on it not being. And you can do whatever you want with your money. A great place for you to bet it that, though, is over at the BetMGM Sportsbook. Get down on some future MLB bets, right? Like Jordan Lawler, Rookie of the Year. Why not? Who says no? I mean, probably a lot of people, but I'd still throw some money on it. And you can do that over at the BetMGM Sportsbook. Download the app right now. Sign up and deposit at least $5 into your newly created account and use our code of PHNX. If you place a wager in the amount of at least $5 at a standard odds price, you will receive $150 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your wager. Do not miss our PHNX Bet Show, which currently is being hosted by Leah. Is that right?
Wow.
Leah's our PHNX Bets host now?
That's amazing that Leah's doing bets.
I feel like
I need the Leah lock.
I would
is
trust.
what I need.
I would trust Leah way more than I would trust Damon with my money.
Very
frankly.
true.
Whoa,
That's very. And
the
she's hit on those
Damon.
Coyotes bets. So do not sleep on Leah's locks over there at the bet or at the PHNX Bets. But of course, if you want to get down on that fun and you haven't signed up yet, do so now. Over at the BetMGM Sportsbook, use that bonus code of PHNX. Place your first sportsbook wager through the Sportsbook mobile application for at least $5. You'll receive $150 instantly from the fine folks at BetMGM in additional winnings regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to Damon talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms. This promotional offer is not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
All
It's
right.
a good thing you're back,
I
Derek.
know.
Patrick was terrible
I
at that.
bet he
was so
I mean, he
bad.
doesn't put his heart in things like that. I know that for a fact. Of course, you can put your heart in adventures like the adventure I had on my little cruise ship right here in Arizona, because Arizona Lottery is letting you have all sorts of adventures around this great state of ours, and they're giving you a chance to win up to $1 million in cash and travel prizes. You can play with their brand new Arizona Adventure Lottery tickets featuring 3 iconic landscapes. You can also check in at geolocated adventures at 10 destinations across the state, which I highly recommend doing that. There are all sorts of wonderful locations from Flagstaff to Yuma, all around the valley. Check in at destination coordinates on the website or enter tickets online, and all this for a chance to win up to $1 million in cash and Arizona travel prizes. This promotion is all about celebrating state pride and the uniqueness and beauty of Arizona. And Arizona Lottery says that the proceeds from ticket sales support environmental conservation, among other important initiatives across the state. So visit azadventure.com right now for more information on how you can take an adventure with the Arizona Lottery and for your chance to win $1 million in cash and Arizona travel prizes. Big thank you to all of you guys for being here in the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. I missed you guys so much. You're the only reason why I left that cruise ship. It's not because they were bing-bong in my room to death and telling me to get out. It's because I missed you guys. So make sure that's the sound it made. Emma's laughing at the bing bong thing. It was bing bong. Oh, well, yeah, I guess bing bonging in my room. Yeah, you're right. We still do phrasing around here, Emma. We still do. Don't think we don't. So I'm glad you're here. But of course, we thank you guys for being here in the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, do so now. Sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss when any of our wonderful shows go live. Leave us a like. We always like when you drop those likes. If you're listening on the audio podcasting side, make sure to leave us a review over there. Make sure you're subscribed over there as well. We thank you guys for doing that. Anthony Rendon, Jesse, his comments when asked about his priorities in baseball kind of set the baseball world on fire a bit. And I do feel like it's kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, the man was essentially asked by a reporter about his priorities and his commitment to the game of baseball. And I will start off before we get into these comments by saying, I understand we all want to think every one of our athletes on every one of our teams loves the sport and the team that they're on more than anything else in the whole wide world. But that is just realistically not the case with human beings. Sure. And I think the problem is that for the most part, athletes know what we want to hear, and athletes say the things that we want to hear. But few people are Corbin Carroll, Jesse. Few people are out there committing, basically breaking and entering, felonies to go to a high school and play baseball with his mom. Few people are out there all by himself at Salt River Fields with the keys. They gave him the big ring of keys because no one else was going to go meet him out there. They're like, here. And he's been out there since November, before Thanksgiving and stuff. The man has an unprecedented commitment to the game of baseball. And while we all want to believe every single one of our athletes are like Corbin Carroll, they're just not. They're just not. And sometimes they're going to be honest about stuff. And Anthony Rendon was asked about his commitment to baseball. And he said, it's never been a top priority for me. This is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith, my family come first before this job. So if those things come before it, I'm leaving. He was asked again by the journalist, is it a priority? He said, oh, it's a priority for sure because it's my job. I'm here, aren't I? And then he was asked, do you want to be here? And he said, I don't want to talk to you guys at 7 a.m. or whatever time it is. And then he was asked again, do you want to be here playing baseball for the Angels? And his response was short at that point and annoyed. And he said, I have answered your question, so why do you keep picking at it? Let's be honest. Like, this guy is just saying the things, the quiet parts out loud. He's saying the things that a lot of athletes want to say, right? Like Their family, their faith, other things do come before their commitment to the sport they play. And a lot of people do feel like this thing they do is just a job. Like, to us, we idolize these people. We want them to think that they're doing the greatest thing in the world and they're living gods amongst us mortals. And they're not. They're just people. And those people have their own priorities. And sometimes someone like this makes these comments and then it becomes a news story because it feels like he doesn't give a shit about baseball or his team or playing the game.
Right.
Now, I will say that he has already been a guy that in the past has made controversial comments about
Anthony Rendon.
His commitment to the game. So, of course, anything he says now is viewed as differently than if you would have heard this, let's say, out of like Paul Sewald, right?
Oh, yeah.
If Paul Sewall
yeah.
would have made these same exact comments, for instance, nobody would have blinked an eye because they would have been like, he's the dad of the bullpen. We know that. So, of course, his family comes first. That's no surprise to us, right? We just don't want to think of any athlete really thinking of this as just a job. Right. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I totally agree with what you're saying, that if you know, we could name hundreds of different athletes, like hundreds of different baseball players, where if they said this, it would not have been a story. This wasn't a story because what Anthony Rendon said was unreasonable. It was a story because Anthony Rendon is the one who said it.
He's
right?
notoriously, he's a notorious hater, it seems like, of the game of baseball.
And
almost.
Anthony Rendon notably has averaged to play about 45 games per year over the last few seasons. Right. And there have been some questions raised about his commitment to the sport.
The Angels paid him a ton of money.
The Angels are paying him a heck of a lot of money. But yeah, I mean, I would almost be concerned, honestly, if any athlete views baseball as being more important than, you know, things like their faith or their family, or, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, like, our jobs do not define who we are as people. Although working at PHNX, sometimes it has felt that it defines me as a person because it takes up a lot of my time.
I'm a goddamn mayor, Jesse. I'm a captain mayor. What are we talking about?
Yeah, that's fair.
Here?
You clearly just leaned into defining your entire identity based on working at PHNX.
I said, when I lose this job, I assure you I will be a broken shell of myself because I will have no identity any longer. I will have given everything to this company. But I also understand, like, we love this job. We love this job. And there are like thousands of people that would love to have a job like this. Millions of people, maybe even, right? There's millions of sports fans out there, and they would love to have an opportunity to work covering a team or a sport that they love as much as you and I love baseball, right?
Totally.
But it doesn't change the fact that this is still a job for us. There are still days where we hate we hate this job. There's still days where we get up, we don't want to come to this job. Like, it is a job, and it doesn't matter, I think, sometimes how cool your job is. Once it becomes your job, there are going to be times where this is how you feel about it, right?
Sure.
And Merrill Kelly appeared on Chris Rose's podcast, and Chris Rose talked to him about the situation, and this is what Merrill Kelly actually had to say in regards to this.
Yeah, I think so. That's what the beauty of baseball is. When you walk into a locker room, the spectrum of people and personalities and ideals and values and all of that are on such a range of a spectrum. There's people that love baseball, the game of it, the ins and outs, the strategy of it. And then there's also guys on the other end of the spectrum that don't necessarily love the game, but they're really good at it, and they can make a lot of money, and they can support their family, and they can do what it is that they really enjoy doing through this vehicle that is, you know, like he said, like his job. What we do is a lot of fun, but it's also a grind. You know, we're away from our families for most of the year. We're traveling, living out of suitcases, going from city to city, flight and flight. I'll say it this way. If fans think he's the only guy that views baseball that way, I think they'd be very mistaken.
It's that part at the end, I think, is very poignant.
Well said.
And of course, being in the clubhouse, being in the locker room, they get to be around guys that have the same mentality. They're not going to necessarily speak on it the same way Rendon did, but at the same time, they do feel that way. That comes back to when Torey was asked last week about the personalities that they bring into this clubhouse, right? And that's really why it comes down to talent selection and really trying to dig in to see if these guys are necessarily committed as much as you need them to be in order to run a successful team like the Diamondbacks, right? Like, there are other teams that can experience success with maybe having some of those big egos, maybe having some of those people that feel that way. But the way Torey runs his team, the way that this team found success was that connected and dangerous mentality from last season, right? And I mean, Teo brought that up. Like, do you seek out these people on purpose that kind of mesh well? Because Eugenio, Eduardo, all of these new additions to this team all seem to be fitting in very well with their teammates. And it just kind of seems like that is kind of part of the talent scouting that the Diamondbacks purposefully do. You do have to be careful who you give a big contract to, because you could give a big contract to a guy like this who isn't really committed to, you know, trying to be on the field every day and be his best every day, right? That's kind of what is why that character factor is such a big deal for the Diamondbacks.
I think that, I can kind of relate to what Merrill is saying, where there are a lot of people in the world who do not really enjoy what they do on a daily basis, but they're good at it and they get paid a freaking lot of money to do it.
Yeah.
And for as much as I personally value like enjoying my work and feeling fulfilled in my work, if someone comes to me and offers me, 9 figures or something like that to do something that I don't enjoy, I'm at least gonna like take the phone call, like there, like, and granted, in order to be a professional baseball player, there's a level of commitment that is needed. There is a level of, you have to be willing to sort of dedicate your life to it in some ways, at least like for a season of your life as you're developing and kind of getting into the sport. But once you're there, I mean, once you're a major league player and you've got the contract and all those things, I understand, like, you might reach a point where your heart maybe isn't in it in the way that it once was, but you're getting paid a lot of money to do it. And you're okay working a job that maybe your heart isn't in, but you're making a decent chunk of change and you're pretty good at it at the same time.
There are plenty of people that play the sport of baseball professionally that just did it because they've just loved baseball their whole life, right? But there's probably an equal percentage of people that did it because of the pot at the end of the rainbow, right? And that could be said about all sports, that people aren't necessarily looking at that because I want to get up and I want to play football and I want to get hit and I want to, I want to put my like well-being physically on the line for this sport that I love. No, most people are doing it because they want to ultimately reach a payday that is what some of these superstars get in every sport. It is hard once those guys get those big paydays. That's why it's crazy. That's why it's crazy in this modern day era to be giving out 13-year contracts and 14-year guaranteed deals and all of this stuff, because how do you keep someone motivated for that long of time to be at the level that you're paying them to be at, right? And I mean, again, Elise said it, right? Jokic makes similar comments and nothing is said of it, right? Because Jokic is a good, decent dude. And he said this about basketball. I think, like you said, hundreds, thousands of players in different sports could say this, and it wouldn't even be a story. We wouldn't even be discussing it. The reason why is it's because somebody that has a track record of having a lack of commitment to the game and also being paid a huge contract and at one point being seen as one of the best players in the game is now kind of just publicly stating that he doesn't make baseball a priority in his life.
Yeah, I mean, like, Anthony Rendon probably shouldn't be telling reporters this stuff. Like there was like a by the book answer here that would have done his name a favor. But also, this is Anthony Rendon, and when has Anthony Rendon ever seemed remotely concerned about the way that people perceive him, right? It's almost part of his brand at this point that he is fully willing to go on the record and say the most controversial, provocative things, and he knows how people are going to react to it, and I don't think it really bothers him. So in some ways, maybe Anthony Rendon is the real winner here and getting all of us to talk about this situation.
It's true.
I don't think he really cares that much how people think of him. Otherwise, he probably would have started thinking about what he was saying a long time ago.
Yeah, that's a great point. All I know is that at one point, Zach Greinke was in the Diamondbacks clubhouse, and I never knew what we were going to hear out of him. And I almost approached him like he was some sort of bear who was going to attack us. Like, you had no idea what was going to come out of the guy's mouth. So you kind of walk over sheepishly with your microphone and be like, Zach, how's it going? And like instantly it's like, just ask him how it's going. What soundbite are we going to get out of him? Right. So it's it's weird now that the Diamondbacks have this kind of clubhouse filled with guys that all kind of are nice and say the right thing and have some humility to them, and also have a different level of commitment when they answer these questions than this, right?
Yeah,
that's essentially what we all want at the end of the day. Is we want the players on our team to sound like they're more committed than this. And again, his answer is not an answer that should be villainized, scrutinized, or even discussed. it's real. And I mean, it's the way that most people should prioritize their lives, right? Like, put your family and your faith first, put things that mean stuff to you first. It doesn't mean that baseball isn't a priority in there. It's just not the number one priority, and that's fine. That's fine for any athlete, you know. But you're not going to get that out of Corbin Carroll, by the way. I'm just saying that much. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, most baseball players understand that they will be vilified for saying certain things, and they try to avoid that. And Anthony Rendon understands that he will be vilified for certain things, and he has no issue with that whatsoever. Hence why we're talking about Anthony Rendon on this show once every 2 or 3 months, because there's always something that he's saying that's getting people riled up.
Meanwhile, that's why I'm the mayor. I want everybody to like me so much, Jesse, all the time. I'm the opposite of Anthony Rendon, but I still say stupid things that make people angry. So, I mean, what's new? I will tell you guys, though, that we do appreciate you for being here. Make sure if you're not a diehard member, you go check that out. We have some wonderful stuff, including a free t-shirt from the PHNXlocker.com. Compare that with the 30% off sale tonight. Get yourself a nice little package from the PHNXlocker.com and get yourself ready for baseball season with some wonderful shirts. You also get all of Jesse's content. You get access to our Discord lounge, where we are always doing some exclusive content just for you diehards. And you diehards, you can testify. You can let the rest of the people know that we've had some city council meetings. We had a game show. We have Jesse and me just hanging out in there discussing what we're doing around the spring training backfields and everything like that. So make sure to join us, because we're having a wonderful time over here. And you can get some discounts with our partners and discounts on our events, like our upcoming takeover events, including that one on July 31st at the Chase Field Pool, which is going to be an absolute blast. But we do, again, appreciate you guys for being here. We thank you so much for your time. You can make sure to follow us on Twitter. We'll be back here tomorrow night covering another spring training baseball game. But until then, follow me on Twitter. I'm at @cap_caveman with a K. This absolute maniac is at Jesse N. Friedman. You can get Emma is at Emma K. Clark.
Emma and Clark.
Emma and Clark. I don't even know where the K come from. What the hell did I do? I'm just making up new middle names for her. Emma and Clark. What are we? We're Ryan's dogs, of course, first and foremost. We're also Damon's dogs. Can we be Emma's dogs?
Yeah, Emma's elephants.
Oh, this is getting weird. We're Kyle's kids, and that's a goat reference. So I mean, we'll have to figure something. We'll have to workshop this. But until then, that's for Kyle. We miss you, Kyle. We appreciate you guys for stopping by. Of course, our show's at PHNX_DBacks, but all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We appreciate you so much. We thank you guys for your time. It's great to be back. It's great to be covering baseball again, and I cannot wait to get back out there at Salt River Fields tomorrow. So make sure to follow us for all that fun. Thank you guys for stopping by. Remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's also fun to just go take a cruise sometime and get away from baseball.
We all silly like the mayor.